Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer,
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker.
and we are into April here on Hustling Sideways. I was going
It's
to give you a number, but we totally, the last time that we recorded and gave
uh,
us a number,
yeah,
we were off.
yeah, and I don't even know. So I'm kind of done. Well, we remember we used to make like age jokes based on a number
Now we're over
of show.
100.
Now we're dead. So
We're at the
yeah,
life
it's
expectancy.
we are
Yeah.
currently deceased, and it's great to be here as a dead pod number. No, but yeah, it is. So as we're recording this, like it's like 60 and sunny, and we are like weather is so back,
This
and
is fake summer,
it's
though.
I
This is
know, I
totally
know.
fake
It
summer right
lasts for
now.
like a day and then it moves on. But it's good. I'm a spring guy personally. That's my favorite time of year. Like
Really?
it's like a I'm like spring to me is like a long sleeve shirt, like jeans on. I'm like at Lakefront Brewery. Like it's like
Okay.
the first like nice Sunday. Like this is what I
This is
did
a very
yesterday. That's why I'm
specific
bringing it
scene.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what happened. But I love it. I think like the city comes alive, and we when we have that good weather, we take advantage of it. It's
I
like
just
some of the
like
best.
not having to wear a million layers to go outside.
Yeah,
And honestly, like, because I have
I
to walk
feel
the
that.
dog a lot.
Uh-huh.
So it's
I
like a
see those tabs.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you got to put the dog sweatshirt
I
on, and
know.
he doesn't want to do it.
No,
He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just a
no.
dog.
He's just a dog. That's what
He's
dogs
just a
do.
dog.
They
So that's
just, yeah,
happening.
yeah. But you a dog too, man.
I have that
You a
dog in me.
dog. You
Got
got
that
that
dog in
dog.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you forget
Um,
that.
speaking of total terrible segue of the
Transition
year,
of the year. Yeah.
it is also March Madness by this
It
point,
is.
and our brackets are probably busted
They're
by this
done.
point.
They're done. Yeah. Mine's finished. Coin flip bracket didn't even do it either. And
No,
everything's awful. And I'm gonna lose a lot of money. It's gonna be great.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
This is the magic of the tournament season.
We love March.
It's not even March Madness
Yeah.
anymore. It's gone into
Yeah,
April
it's
and
the
whatever.
worst. Yeah. Well, let's talk about something a little bit more fun than that, and
I
that's
like
our
that.
guest. And we're excited to welcome him in. So, someone I've known, and you're gonna gargle at this here, Tom, but like about 10 years, which is ridiculous. But we have Tom Dixon, who is a speech therapist and also an entrepreneur in speech therapy. You're gonna find out what that means. But Tom, welcome to Hustling Sideways.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe when you said 10 years, I was very thrown off guard. And then I realized we're in 2025,
Mhm.
and that's not far off.
I
So,
know. And
yeah.
so for reference, I'm very close friends with Tom's wife, and I met obviously Tom through his wife Haley. And I remember when you came to Milwaukee to meet us, like her small group of friends, and it was a decade ago, which is like so because it was like post grad, we were like a year or two into it, and that just doesn't feel right to
No,
like that could
you
be like a long
also,
time.
right before we started recording,
Yeah.
reminded me of how many years it's been since we've been in college now.
I know I'm just a years guy today and just
Yeah,
I'm like the Grim
honestly.
Reaper of a Monday.
Are you
But
okay?
no, I'm not. Yeah, don't
Good.
ask any questions.
Hmm.
Everything's horrible.
Enough
Anyway,
about us.
yes,
Yes.
let's talk about Tom. So Tom, welcome. Tell us a little bit about Tom, where you're from, your background, and where you grew up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. My name is Tom. I am a speech therapist by education. And I've really kind of lived always in the Midwest. I am from a little north of St. Louis in a really small town in the middle of some cornfields.
Hmm.
Went to college and grad school in Kansas City, moved back to St. Louis for about 8 to 10 years after graduation. Moved up to Milwaukee for about a year, just under a year, to pursue a job. And now my family and I are back in St. Louis. I've been married to my wife for, almost 10 years.
It's coming
So
up on
that
10.
I feel like I'm just aging myself. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, almost 10 years. We have an almost 3-year-old who is the
mhm.
light of
Wow.
our life. And right now, daylight savings time is really kicking our butts because she doesn't want to sleep. But yeah, that's a little about me. Like I said, very happy to be here. And I really want to talk about what speech therapy is, how
Yeah,
I got
please.
into it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
let's go.
And
Let's roll with
I
it.
also think this
Hmm.
may be our first Missouri person in general.
I don't think we've had anybody else from
I don't
Missouri.
think we've had
Yeah,
Missouri. I think that's a new state.
that's it.
You know what I should really do is go
Yeah.
back and check these out and be like, oh yeah, that was this state and that was the
Mhm.
state, and see how many we've hit at this point because I
Yeah,
don't even
and
know.
unfortunately, that takes time, and we're just not willing to do it.
No.
So that's a
Well,
problem.
it's a good thought.
It's a good thought. It could work.
Maybe there's a super fan out there that
It
would
could
just do
happen.
it for
Yeah,
us.
I'll check that one off. But
Okay.
but yes, Tom, tell us about speech therapy, how you got into it, and perhaps some of your experiences in college, and what's really led you down the path that you're on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Speech therapy for me has really been a roller coaster. I did not anticipate getting into the field. I didn't think I would do anything medical, anything like that in college. I actually started college back way in 2009, and I was an English major. So I thought I was just, going to teach high school English because that's where I really excelled at in high school. And that's all I was going to do. I can actually credit the journey into speech therapy or ironically enough from my mom. So she worked in our high school. I had no interaction with speech therapists, didn't really know what they did. And she came home talking about they hired a new speech therapist. So, talked to her a little bit, kind of get an idea of what they did, and then kind of put that on the back burner. I was still pursuing an English degree, didn't really know what I was going to do at that point. Things kind of started getting, muddied in the water. But in college, I had the opportunity to volunteer at a Christian-based summer camp in southern Missouri. Never left the great state of Missouri for the first 30 plus years of my life.
Why would you? Yeah.
Why? It's beautiful here. There's a lot of sarcasm with that. But I got the opportunity to volunteer at a Christian-based summer camp for kids and adults with special needs. And that was really where I started to feel kind of like called in the direction of working with people with disabilities and with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
This was probably like 2011, 2012 at that point. Didn't really know what I was doing still, but I ended up transferring universities, pursuing speech therapy at the undergrad level, and then going on to getting my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just kind of been a wild roller coaster. I feel like I've been able to work with so many wonderful individuals all the way from birth to end of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal of speech therapy is, I have my spiel when I walk into a patient's room, but essentially you're trying to improve communication and quality of life. What that means can be different from person to person. But it's been a really good opportunity to meet so many different individuals from so many walks of life, to
Mm-hmm.
treat and interact with, like different diagnoses that I didn't even know existed 15 years ago. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I've worked in the public school setting for a number of years. I worked in inpatient rehab and acute care, primarily with patients that have survived a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. I've worked in outpatient clinics, again, kind of across the lifespan. Like I would have an early childhood kiddo walk through the door, followed by a patient kind of at the end of their life with Parkinson's,
Mm-hmm.
So again, just a huge spectrum of different types of patients.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also kind of dipped my toe into the world of medical device sales for about 3 years, specifically for a company called Tobii Dynavox. So a branch of speech therapy is augmentative communication. So the best way I know how to describe that is if you have ever seen a kiddo, we're going to stereotype for a minute, but maybe on the autism spectrum, who uses like a tablet or an iPad to communicate. That's what we're talking about whenever we're referring to like augmentative communication. So anything to supplement or replace verbal speech. So I got to work for this company that did a lot of training with augmentative communication. And I loved it. That's really kind of where I fell into my niche for speech therapy, and really kind of it's where I've been going since then. So I love working with complex patients, trying to play detective to figure out what the best idea is for restoring their communication, amplifying their communication, and just kind of going along the ride with them. So it's been a very rewarding career. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
I'm gonna go back a little bit to your
Yeah.
experience at the camp that you mentioned, and
Oh my
I know
gosh, I love
that
it.
triggered sort of like this passion.
Yeah.
Was there a particular camper or experience there that sticks out to you as like, wow, like that was really like that was transformational, or was it the overall just like environment and atmosphere there? What about that made you really passionate about doing that work and put you on this trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a friend in college
Hmm.
who, he was on staff at the summer camp. He volunteered a ton, and he was always that that guy behind me saying like, come volunteer, come hang out, come do this. And I was like, no, I'm a very selfish 19-year-old, 20-year-old, I don't want to, I'm not interested in doing that. I don't want to do that. And I finally took him up on it. And I went, and for an entire weekend in the spring, I want to say spring of 2011, I did not care about myself at all. Like the entire 72 hours we were there were focused on serving these kids. And at that time, like for that specific weekend, it was all kids. But serving these kids with these complex medical diagnoses that, 51 weeks out of the year, they don't get to be a normal kid. They don't get to be a kid that has these really cool experiences like traditional campers do. But for this like one window in time, they got to experience what it was like to, swim at a pool or go on a ropes course or go camping, and kind of, like woven in that was this idea of like kind of servant leadership, and taking these really selfish college kids and really breaking them down and showing them like, hey, the world is so much bigger than you think it is. And there are so many opportunities out there for you to make a positive impact. So that was, 15-ish years ago. The summer directly after that, I got hired on staff. So I spent 12 weeks over the summer at the same camp doing that full time. And it was great. I mean, it was a really life-changing experience. I haven't really thought about it in, a number of years. I remember the high coming off of it. I actually moved from camp back to my last semester of undergrad. So I didn't even have like a break at home. I just went boom, boom. And I just remember like that high coming back to campus and being like, I just did so much. This was so good. And it really kind of got me questioning the rest of my college experience. I really wanted to, there was a time, you can ask my close friends, where I just said, I'm not even going to finish my degree. I'm just going to go and just love on kids. And that was me. That was, needed some discernment in that.
I love
but yeah, so it was a very transformational experience. There were definitely some memorable kids that first weekend that I can still recall very specifics about. But yeah, shameless plug. It's called Camp Barnabas and it's in southern Missouri. Everyone listening should definitely go and check it out. They're always looking for volunteers over the summer. It will change your life.
That's right. Well, I had a feeling that like that was the vibe because if I'm thinking about like analogy wise, like my career in leadership and development and speaking started at a similar type of environment that was dedicated to leadership development for high school students. And when I go back to most things I've done and what really triggered that passion was that weekend. And that was 18 years ago. And like a very similar vibe to what you're describing of how transformative and the people and you were able to be on staff and really be selfless with them for a while. And that was like the most important part was them. Like those are so critical, and I know not everyone gets an opportunity to do something like that, but if you do ever have an opportunity, especially for the young audience that listens to this, like take that, like that's really unique. And you think back to how critical that was. And it's Tom, it set you up for what you wanted to do. That became your vocation. And it was something that was so critical and important. And you think back, you're like, wow, like that's where I would needed to be. And then what really gave me the step stool to go after what I wanted to do. I think it's really cool. And I love listening you describe it because I think I could tell it meant a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like we talk on the show all the time about, you absorb things from all over the world, right? Like from, what you're doing in school, what you're doing out of school, what you're doing in your spare time, whatever. So when it comes to volunteering like that for something like that, I feel like there are moments that everybody has too that just totally like is a hard shift. And they're like, no, this is the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you land on this is the thing that you're totally supposed to do. And that just reaffirms it kind of thing.
Exactly.
Were you always somebody that volunteered before this? I know you said selfish 19 and 20-year-old, but were you ever like the person that took summer class or took summer, time out to like work on whatever or volunteer for help out somebody's project? Or was this kind of the first thing and it ended up being the thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. There were, I mean, growing up in high school, I was involved, with like student council and, National Honor Society and youth group at church and things like that. And there were always those like structured things of like, hey, we're doing this. We're like, we are going to do this canned food drive, or we are going to do this car wash. But this, unless I'm blanking in my old age, this was the first time that I, took that leap kind of by myself independently. And it paid off. It was really good, really good.
No
Yeah,
doubt. No doubt.
absolutely. So let's talk about, post that experience, getting out of school and working in speech pathology. At what point do you kind of notice there's a problem that needs to get solved here? And kind of really develop that, like, you have something that could be, innovative here.
Yeah. So something that I always will tell people, I'm the most type B person. So anyone that knows me knows that I will get the job done, but I will go about it my own way. And it's hard sometimes to feel constrained by whatever parameters, kind of exist in society. So in the school setting, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the school setting, but whenever you're working in special education, you're tied by like the IEP. Everything has to point back to the curriculum. All of your goals have to align with like progressing the patient or the student like to their academic goals, which is great. We love that. In a healthcare setting, everything is bound by insurance. And these people that sit thousands of miles away in an office that have never interacted with a patient before, they are the ones making those decisions about how long they're staying, what kind of services they get, XYZ. And that is great. We need those structures in place. However, there's a ton of gaps in the system. It doesn't matter if you're working with pediatrics. It doesn't matter if you are working with adults. There are tons of gaps where parents, caregivers, loved ones are really left kind of with their hands in the air, and they say, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what my next step is. I don't know what I'm entitled to. And throughout my whole career, I really loved being that educator for those people that don't know how the system works. I think a prime example of this is, I've worked clinically for almost a decade now and got to see a ton of patients. You interact with so many caregivers that, you never meet a patient or a student that's on your caseload on their best day. No one is ever having the best day when you're coming in for stroke rehab. You have a parent with a kiddo that has a new autism diagnosis. You're never meeting that parent on their best day. So how can I be that, that little slice of positivity for them, and help them not only with their communication goals or their social emotional goals, but also just like connecting them to resources for the first time, or like the time that they need right now. I think a big example, I kind of tangented a little bit, but I think a big example and how I really started to feel this personally was about a year and a half ago. My dad was actually diagnosed with a aggressive form of dementia, aggressive form of Alzheimer's. So for the first time, I was not the provider, but I kind of fell into that caregiver role. And not a caregiver, like my mom is there taking like facilitating all of that full time. But for the first time, it's hitting me in a very personal way. And my mom would come to me with all of these questions saying, well, I don't know what kind of therapy he needs. I don't know, like, who's the best neurologist? What do we do like at home whenever he's having a hard time? And I realized that, I'm always wanting to be that educator. I'm always wanting to improve those lines of communication, but now it's hitting me in a different way. Which is why I really started branching out and trying to figure out, like I want to help my family. I want to help him as he progresses through this disease, but I also want to, like, I know, like, this is not to sound like cocky or anything like that, but I know a lot about a very small field. I know a lot about a little thing. So how can I help out other people if they're dealing with these diagnoses or these illnesses, even if I'm not their treating provider, even if I'm not, like, they're not on my caseload, how can I put that information out there for other people to absorb and hopefully improve their life.
Sure. Yeah, kind of a lot.
That's right. Yeah,
That was a lot.
that's great.
But that brings up something that's really interesting to me is like you said that there are those constraints, right? When you're in the school system of like you have to be at the curriculum. I think especially the insurance thing of, when you're in a clinical setting to say, I can only do so much because your insurance will only give you up to X,
Yeah.
How frustrating is that as somebody that deals with any kind of medical care to, be limited like that and then go, okay, I need to do something that is beyond what is even in this caregiving, but I can't because this is what they're allowed to do. How
Yeah, I mean,
frustrating.
it's incredibly frustrating, and I think sometimes you have to be creative about how you approach things or how you start to manage that like discharge process. I will
Mm-hmm.
say, I think at the beginning of my career, I was this hot young professional saying, "Oh, I have a master's degree. I know everything. I'm the only one that can fix you." And that is not what it is. I remember being in these team meetings with my patients whenever I first started, and I was kind of this like hothead that would come in saying like, "Oh, they need this much time, they need this much, like they have to be here." And that's almost kind of switched now and saying we can do everything we can for you right now, but also we're going to have the faith and confidence in the next level of care that they are also going to meet those needs. And in the meantime, let's work really, really hard, really, really aggressively on these goals and give you the education and resources that you need to be successful at that next level.
Mhm.
And I think that just kind of comes with like experience and like maturity as you like kind of progress through your career. It is frustrating, but we can start to kind of work around it and mitigate it a little bit.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, Tom, what have you started doing, and just in terms of you're kind of starting to see a need. It's obviously hitting
Yeah.
you personally, and you want to start making a difference. Walk us through what some this idea that you started to come up with, and share as much as you're comfortable sharing of
Yeah.
where it's going, where it's at, and all the good things about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, what started as my mom just coming to me and saying, "Hey, I need some ideas of things to make your dad's life easier."
Hmm.
We'll kind of blanket statement that. So I like get on a laptop and I'm trying to figure out, what are some things I can make just for him to just kind of make the day easier, to make those transitions easier. Um, started like kind of just tapping into this like creative side of me, um, trying to figure out how we can be resourceful but also very approachable with the things that I am like lining up for him. So an example, um, part of this like progressive disease is a hard time like sequencing like daily tasks.
Hmm.
Even as simple as like, and this is not something that he has trouble with right now, but just an example, like brushing your teeth, like you're grabbing your toothbrush, you're putting the toothpaste on it, you're brushing, you're rinsing, you're putting the toothpaste or you're putting the toothbrush away. For 90% of us, that is like an easy task, but for people with the like degenerative disease, those sequences can be challenging. So one of my first things that I wanted to start making was, just like a visual schedule so that there is like the step with a tiny picture that says, first, we're going to grab our toothbrush. Next,
Hmm.
we're going to put toothpaste on it, just to have that visual cue handy in case we ever run into like an issue. And that really sparked that creativity. And I got really excited to continue like making different resources and things like that for patients that might not have like a steady speech therapist, that might be in between levels of care, for for kids and adults that might not qualify for services, but they're still in need there. So what I created, I'm not an expert by any means at web design. You will see that. But I created a website, so it's called speechstuffstl.com. And I just have a ton of resources on there and a ton of different stories and blog posts about my life as a clinician. So there is a smattering of different resources right now, anything from assistance and activities for kids and adults that are using augmentative communication, which is very near and dear to my heart, all the way from different like educational materials to different specific treatment approaches for patients that are dealing with a loss of language after a stroke. It's growing. I say we, it's me at night on my computer after a toddler goes to bed.
It's a big we. Yeah,
Totally
it's a
guilty
big
of that
we.
same
Yes. But it's growing. There's a ton of ideas in a note on my phone. Whenever I have a spare minute, I'm on my laptop trying to throw together the next piece. And it's been great. It's been a great kind of creative challenge for myself. And in the feedback that I've received, it seems to be well received with the people that have kind of interacted with it, which is neat.
That's awesome. Did you anticipate this getting value beyond your family? Like when what was the first time someone reached out to you that was like, oh, I want some of your resources? Like, what did that feel like? Like that, like, wow, like this, I'm creating a thing that goes beyond just requests from my mother. That's a lot more significant.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't think that it was going to go anywhere further than just me creating some like handouts and visual schedules, to use in the home. I currently work on a team of 5 different speech therapists at my rehab hospital, and I had some things that I had made, but I printed out, but I didn't really tell anyone. And someone asked me the other day, they were a while ago. They said, "Oh, hey, like, where did you get this?" And I was like, "Oh, like, I made it." And they're like, "Oh, this is neat. Like, can I use this?" And that just kind of like made me think a little bit bigger than myself. And that's kind of where it went from there.
Yeah, that's enough to propel you. I mean, I think it's really everyone kind of has like for all entrepreneurs, like that first time that you create value beyond you or someone
absolutely.
else. And it's hard to ascertain that that's something you make like is more like when I'm thinking about the first time I gave a keynote, it was for that conference and that was it. And I was like, I probably won't ever do this again. And then 10 years later, like here we are, like, but
Yeah.
you don't anticipate people being like, wow, like I want something that you're making and it's become a passion for you and something that like you said, you're good at. Like this is an area that you're very good at and has affected you personally to a sense that like not only can you impact your daily life, but then other people that you're expanding, this value beyond it. And it's probably a lot of things that are personal to those folks too. I mean, it's a very, subjective thing that people, can get it from. So that's really cool. And I think holding on to that moment and being like, I can build this and do a whole lot more. And have people like given you suggestions on other products to make, or is it mostly that you're creating these resources and that you're giving that? But have you gotten like, oh, I would love if you had something like this and made it based off of a comment like that?
Yeah, so there have been a few things that, I try to be like as like active, maybe we'll say active, nosy on Facebook, just trying to see like, like what are the trends in speech therapy?
Yeah.
What are people talking about?
Mhm.
What are the needs? And I've had a few people that I've kind of reached out to that I trust really, really implicitly and I've asked them, hey, if you like, where's the gap? What is something that you think you need? Something that's not out there? And even like my small team at work, I've reached out to them to say, hey, like, what is something that we don't have that maybe I could like throw together? And because I have like my set of experiences and you can call it my clinical expertise, but at the end of the day, like I've only worked with like these different types of patients,
Mhm.
but there's so many other people out there that have been doing this for longer than me in different settings with different patients. So let me learn from you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that been a community? Like, have you found that to be a really supportive community of folks coming together to help this like come on, or is it like, or do you feel like you're kind of in your own thing, or are you getting a level of support of like, wow, we're doing this maybe together in a sense?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is like a handful of people where,
Mhm.
I feel confident like bouncing ideas off of them,
Mhm.
asking them for their input, asking them for their expertise. And
Yeah.
it's kind of created this really cool like give and take,
Mhm.
where, like will ask them like their opinion or even like what they would do with like a challenging patient and vice versa. And it's been really, 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 really good. It's been good so far.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you know what I think is coolest about this is that it's created with the right intentions. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
so many people that we talk to, you know, they're like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to make a bunch of money off of it.
Right.
And I think a lot of people go into a business or create their own thing
Mm-hmm.
with the intention of being like, hey, no, like eventually this will be my meal ticket and this will be my
Sure.
money, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it takes years and years and years, eventually they're like, this will be my full-time thing. This was totally created to solve a problem,
Mm-hmm.
which is the best type of
Right.
entrepreneurship to me,
Yeah.
is when somebody is like, there's actively a problem here. I will create the solution to this problem. The money will come after.
Yeah. I mean, not to quote Vanilla Ice, but also to quote Vanilla Ice, if there's a problem, you'll all solve it. I mean, that's should I just head out now or
Yeah, just
okay. It's good to see you guys.
actually the window
See
is
ya.
open
See ya.
today.
That was a good vanilla. I need that was a good Vanilla Ice quote.
I
It took me a
appreciate
minute.
that you were able to just
All right,
pull that.
I took away from the from the lovely Alan comment.
The
I
poignancy
agree.
of it.
You are solving a problem, Tom. It's great.
So next up, let's talk about the vanilla ice turtle wrap. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
That's perfect.
where do you kind of want to take this? And, you know, are you just kind of playing it by ear and seeing like where does this expand to, or what's kind of your vision for this right now?
Yeah, remember, I said I'm incredibly type B. So I definitely have been very much playing it by ear. I think the next goal that I want, so all of my everything that I've made so far has either been a blog post, which now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I'm overdue for one. But I think it's been either like a blog post or like a digital download. Like
Mhm.
that is it. It's been very much, I made this, here you go, good luck with it. Um, and not to say that I don't think it's like thorough and that anyone can like use it for those specific patient populations, but I do miss that like that training piece, that face-to-face piece. Something that I would like to try to figure out maybe like next steps is to kind of step back into that like consulting role, to where, you know, maybe someone's reaching out and they don't need like a printed material, but they need support face to face. You know, they need to
Mhm.
like run ideas by, they want to brainstorm about different things. I don't really know how that would look, but I do miss that like one-on-one education piece with those. I mean, kind of everyone that I would work with. In all of my jobs, I've worked with a lot of like caregivers and parents, but most recently, working with new professionals was really, really rewarding. You know, so those speech therapists that had just got out of graduate school, that they look at you kind of like a deer in the headlights and they're like, I have no idea what to do. I've never seen this type of patient. Help. That was really rewarding. So how do we kind of like tackle that? How do I get in front of you to kind of like be that like mentor, that support along the way? So stay
That's
tuned for
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I could definitely see the level of mentorship that would like follow from this, especially like I mean I just have to imagine that a lot of folks in speech therapy and in doing what you do have some level of personal reason of why they're doing it. I mean I just I don't like it's a generalization, but like usually like I'm thinking about nurse it, you know, like there was some experience that led them to pick because it's a vocation. It's a
Mhm.
hard job. It's a really, really hard job, and it's a vocation that you pick, right? And I don't think you just fall randomly into it, like in sales or something. You know, like
Yeah.
it's like that. So I would imagine that those folks starting like want to look at someone who's doing the job well, and then also like creating this value piece that's outside of it. And how do I even get started in that? You know, like what do I do? And let me ask this, Tom, like. How did you start it? Did you just sit down and just do it? Or were you like, did you plan? Like, what, like the day that came up that you were just like, I'm going to create this thing? Were you just like, you know what? Like, just gonna do it and just see what happens? Like, is it,
As someone that's also a little type B, I can
yeah,
tell you what the answer is
yeah.
going to be to this, but I'm going to let you go with
You tell it.
Yeah, it really was just like, I'm gonna sit down and
Mhm.
talk about it, or I'm just gonna sit down and like try it.
Do it. Yeah.
I had I bought a, what do you call it? Like a subscription to Canva. And I
No.
just started trying to punch out things to see, you know, like what stuck, what fit. I had talked
Yeah.
to a few people at work who had like similar ideas and who are like way more creative than me. I asked my wife a lot for Canva help because I did not know how to do anything like that. But yeah, it was really just there was a couple weeks where I was just throwing whatever at the wall and seeing what stuck.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
And
that's
yeah, if you want to solve a problem, you have a passion for it, literally just go and do it. And that's it. That's like a big lesson we've taken away from our guests, and like to not overthink it, you know. And if you have an idea that's 75% there, then like go do it. Like just try it out, and worst comes to worst, you're in the same position you were before you started.
I would say you'll figure out that other 25% as you go.
Exactly right.
And we are still always in that other 25% of figuring stuff out.
That's right.
So I think this is really cool what you're doing. It's amazing that you're helping people. I mean, that you have tangible proof that people are being helped by this too, and other, professionals are being like, we want to use this. That's, I mean, all good things, right? Coming from this. If people want to follow this a little bit more, I know you said the website before, but where's the best places to go and find you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram account. So again, just the handle Speech Stuff STL. I'm on TikTok, which I don't know if I'm like proud to say that or not.
No, it's fine.
I feel like I'm too old for TikTok.
No. I'm on TikTok too.
Okay.
Everybody's doing
I'll follow you.
Still cool. It's still we'll follow you back, dude.
Perfect. So yeah, right now just there in addition to the website. The contact info is in the website. So if someone wants to send me an email, I would love to hear just kind of where are you coming from and what do you need help with?
Love it.
That's
perfect. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being here. It was really a joy to hear about your journey and where you're headed, and we can't wait to watch your success. And Alan, what happens if people like are just tuning in the show or they want to watch more of it?
Well, it's funny that you should ask, Jim.
Tell me more.
This is the Hustling Sideways podcast. We are the Hustling Sideways podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We are on TikTok.
We are.
We are on Twitter and Facebook and all of the other things too. If you want to be a guest on this podcast as well, you can send us an email. It is hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.